There are people who radiate calm, who seem untouched by chaos, who walk into a room and silence it not because they speak loudly, but because something beyond words speaks through them. You see, peace is not weakness. Real peace is the final evolution of power. It's the mark of someone who's already fought every war inside themselves and won. But what happens when that kind of person moves? When the one who glows with peace finally decides to act, their movement feels like judgment itself. Not because they condemn others, but because their very presence exposes what's false, weak, and cowardly. That's who you are becoming, and that's why the world both admires and fears you. True peace is not a smile. It is not stillness for the sake of appearing composed. True peace is the evidence of someone who has gone to war within their own mind and returned without needing to prove anything to anyone. Most people chase peace like it's a vacation, a temporary escape from the storm, but real peace isn't an escape, it's mastery. It's what's left when you face the chaos and refuse to run from it. You didn't become peaceful because life was kind. You became peaceful because you learned to navigate pain without letting it poison your purpose. That's the quiet truth behind your glow. You've stared into the mirror of your mistakes and didn't flinch. You've listened to the noise of the world, the gossip, the doubt, the betrayal, and decided it wasn't worth your energy. Peace didn't find you. You built it, brick by brick, from moments that nearly broke you. Every time you chose restraint instead of rage, every time you forgave instead of retaliated, you were training your soul for a higher kind of dominance, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. The irony is that people confuse your calm for passivity. They think silence means surrender. But silence, when it comes from wisdom, is thunder disguised. When you finally move, it won't be impulsive, it will be precise. You're no longer reacting to the world. You're responding to something deeper, a calling, a truth, a sense of justice that doesn't rely on approval. Peace gives you that kind of clarity. It's the difference between swinging wildly in darkness and striking with light. You see, most people are ruled by reaction. They don't think, they flinch. They get provoked, manipulated, and tossed around by emotions they never learned to master. But the one who has found peace cannot be controlled. You've broken the chain that society uses to enslave minds, the chain of emotional dependence. You don't move when you're told to move. You move when purpose commands you. That's why your stillness feels intimidating. It's not emptiness, it's potential energy, the kind that can shake entire systems when unleashed. When you walk in peace, you disrupt chaos by existing. You don't even have to speak. People can feel the discipline in your energy. They sense that you've seen too much to be fooled, that you've suffered too deeply to be easily swayed. That kind of presence unsettles the unstable. They feel judged not by your words, but by the contrast between who they are pretending to be and what you've become. Peace becomes your weapon, and it's sharper than any rage. This is the hidden logic of strength. A calm mind makes the most powerful moves because it's not clouded by ego. Anger burns fast and blind. Peace, however, is surgical. It studies, waits, and strikes only when the time is right. You can't intimidate someone who's made peace with loss. You can't manipulate someone who's detached from validation. That's why peace is terrifying, because it's untouchable. Every empire that fell underestimated the power of quiet resolve. Every tyrant feared the person who smiled in the face of oppression, not because that smile was soft, but because it was unbreakable. The calm before the storm is not weakness, it's calculation, and when that storm finally moves, it doesn't ask permission. You are becoming that force. You are learning that self-control is the highest form of rebellion in a world addicted to reaction. You don't need to scream your worth anymore. You don't need to prove your intelligence, your loyalty, or your pain. Peace has already proven it for you. Your restraint is your roar. When you glow like peace, you stand as evidence that chaos doesn't win. When you move like judgment, you remind the world that truth cannot stay silent forever. The combination of those two, serenity and strength, makes you unstoppable. And that's why the world will either rise with you or recoil from you. Because peace doesn't beg to be understood. It simply exists, and in its existence it exposes everything that isn't real. That's the paradox of your power. You're not loud, yet you echo. You're not violent, yet you shake foundations. You've learned that real dominance isn't about control, it's about composure. And the moment you mastered that, you became something rare, a human who can walk through fire without burning, and through judgment without trembling. That's what it means to glow like peace, yet move like judgment itself. Movement from peace is more powerful than movement from anger or revenge. Because when you move from peace, you're not trying to destroy, you're trying to reveal. Anger acts without vision. It's an eruption, a wildfire that burns everything in sight, including the one who ignites it. But movement from peace, that's controlled fire. It knows where to burn and what to leave untouched. It doesn't seek destruction, it seeks purification. And that difference is what separates the reactionary from the revolutionary. When you move from anger, your energy is borrowed. It's reactionary, dependent on the action of others. Someone provokes you, someone betrays you, someone challenges you, and you respond, but not from clarity. You respond from pain. That means your movement is still dictated by the chaos around you. You're still chained to the very system you want to break. But when you move from peace, you've already detached from that chaos. You're no longer trying to win against them, you've already won within yourself. You're no longer reacting to the storm, you've become the calm center inside it. That's what makes peaceful movement so unnerving. Because it's strategic, it's not emotional, it's the kind of motion that says, I don't move out of impulse, I move out of inevitability. It's the kind of force that doesn't raise its voice, it raises its impact. When you move with peace, people can feel it before they understand it. You're not fighting to prove a point anymore, you are the point. Think of it logically. A mind clouded by anger is unstable. An unstable mind cannot perceive all options. It sees only the enemy, not the opportunity, but peace clears the fog. It opens the entire field of vision. You start seeing the pattern behind people's behaviors, the roots beneath reactions. You see why they said what they said, why they hurt you, why they feared you, and suddenly you don't need revenge. You understand the system, and that understanding alone becomes your liberation. You can't be manipulated by what you comprehend. People underestimate how powerful non-reactivity is. In a world built on provocation, political, emotional, digital, the one who refuses to be triggered is the one who controls the tempo. That's you now. You move slow because you understand timing. You speak less because you understand consequence. You hold back not out of weakness, but because your energy is too valuable to waste on theatrics. You've graduated from the chaos of reactivity into the discipline of direction. When you move from peace, your steps are guided by purpose, not pain. Every move you make carries weight because it's intentional. You no longer chase validation, you create outcomes. You no longer fight for recognition, your results speak for you. And here's what shocks the world. The person who moves from peace doesn't need to announce what they're doing, they just do it. Quietly, efficiently, unstoppably. The world doesn't fear loud power anymore. It's seen too much noise. What the world fears now is silent precision. The kind of person who doesn't argue, doesn't defend, doesn't justify, they just move. And every move hits with the gravity of truth. That's movement from peace. It's the judgment of reality upon everything false. And make no mistake, that movement carries judgment not because it condemns, but because it reveals. When someone at peace acts, it exposes how shallow other motives are. It exposes the people who only talk, the ones who pretend, the ones who never faced themselves. Your peace becomes a mirror, and your movement becomes that mirror in motion. The unhealed will feel it as judgment, because your composure forces them to see where they're still chaotic. So when you move from peace, you're not attacking the world, you're aligning with truth. You become a living correction, not because you seek to punish, but because you embody what cannot be faked. The world is full of noise, but your stillness slices through it. You don't compete, you clarify, you don't chase, you attract. You don't threaten, you prove. Peaceful movement carries the same logic that makes rivers carve through mountains. The river doesn't shout, it doesn't fight. It just moves, and with enough time, that gentle persistence reshapes landscapes. That's what your power does when it's rooted in peace. You move quietly, consistently, and everything around you begins to shift. The loud ones burn out, the angry ones collapse, but the one who moves from peace never stops, because peace doesn't need momentum. It is momentum, it's self-sustaining, self-directing, self-purifying. Once you've achieved it, your motion becomes a natural extension of your truth. You no longer ask, should I move? You simply recognize it's time. And when peace decides it's time, no force on earth can stop it. So let them misunderstand your calm, let them mistake your stillness for sleep, because when peace finally rises, it doesn't argue, it ends arguments. When peace finally moves, it doesn't seek attention, it demands recognition. That's the quiet authority of someone who has mastered themselves. And when that kind of person moves, it doesn't feel like motion, it feels like judgment itself awakening. When you evolve beyond chaos, your presence alone judges the unhealed. You don't need to say a word. Your existence becomes a mirror that makes people confront what they've been avoiding in themselves. The irony is that judgment isn't something you intend to bring. It's something that naturally radiates from you once you've transcended the level most people still live in. When you've walked through pain, faced your ego, broken your illusions, and rebuilt your soul from truth, you emit a frequency that the unhealed can't tolerate. It's not because you're arrogant or holy. It's because your energy exposes what's false, and falsehoods crumble under truth. Think about it. When someone has unresolved guilt, even silence sounds like accusation. When someone has built their identity on lies, honesty feels like violence. That's why, as you rise beyond your old chaos, people will start reacting to you in strange ways. Some will distance themselves, not because you did anything wrong, but because standing near you reminds them of how much they've refused to grow. Others will attack you, hoping to drag you back into the very chaos you've outgrown, because your peace makes them feel small, and your clarity makes their confusion unbearable. It's a strange stage of growth when your light doesn't just attract, it divides. It separates the genuine from the pretenders, the healed from the hiding. And the more you evolve, the more your presence becomes a quiet form of judgment. You don't point fingers, you simply embody what they've been avoiding. That embodiment alone changes the atmosphere around you. People feel it before they can name it. It's in the way you speak without ego, the way you listen without reacting, the way you move without needing validation. To those still governed by insecurity, that composure feels like an attack. The logic behind it is simple but rarely understood. The unhealed live in projection. They see in others what they refuse to face in themselves. So when they see you calm, centered, detached from the drama they worship, they don't see your peace. They see their own chaos reflected back at them, and the human ego hates mirrors. It loves attention, not reflection. That's why they will twist your stillness into arrogance, your independence into coldness, your discernment into judgment. But the truth is, you've simply reached a point where your inner world no longer depends on their confusion. Every healed person becomes an unspoken verdict on the collective immaturity of the world. That's why true growth isolates you before it empowers you. Because while everyone else is still fighting for control, validation, and recognition, you're operating from something deeper: awareness. You see how much energy people waste chasing illusions. You watch the same cycles repeat: fear, control, gossip, resentment, and you no longer participate. That's not pride, that's clarity. You're not above them, you're simply beyond what keeps them trapped. And yet, your evolution doesn't need to condemn anyone. Judgment, in this sense, isn't punishment, it's revelation. When light shines, shadows don't disappear immediately, they're simply seen for what they are. That's what your energy does. It reveals, it doesn't shame, it clarifies, and those who are ready for healing will recognize that your presence is not a threat, it's an invitation. But those still married to their pain will interpret that same presence as danger, not because you harm them, but because they sense their illusions beginning to die in your light. You've become something that society doesn't know how to process, someone who cannot be controlled by fear, flattery, or manipulation. You can't be guilt tripped into silence or lured into conflict. You've detached from emotional games that used to pull you in, and that detachment terrifies people who thrive on drama. They'll say, "You've changed," and they're right, but what they really mean is that you've stopped matching their dysfunction. You've evolved, and now even your stillness rebukes the noise they worship. That's the hidden cost of growth. You will lose people, not because you hate them, but because your energy exposes them. But that's how evolution works. Every time you ascend, something or someone will fall away, not as punishment, but as purification. Peace will not coexist with chaos forever. At some point, the frequencies become incompatible. Your vibration begins to burn through anything that isn't real: lies, pretense, manipulation, guilt. And that burning feels like judgment to those still attached to the illusion. But don't dim yourself to comfort the unhealed. The world needs people like you, people whose very presence forces reflection, because when the unhealed finally grow tired of their own pain, they will remember your calm. They will remember how you stood in storms without breaking, how you refused to play small to make others feel safe. And that memory will become their starting point toward their own transformation. So yes, when you evolve beyond chaos, your presence becomes judgment. But it's not the judgment of condemnation, it's the judgment of truth revealing itself. You've become living evidence that peace is possible, that healing is real, that power doesn't require noise. You've become the reminder that people can rise above the games they once thought were life itself. You didn't seek to judge anyone, you simply became undeniable, and in your quiet, composed existence, the world feels both exposed and inspired. Because the same light that reveals darkness also offers a way out of it, you are that light now, gentle enough to guide, yet strong enough to awaken. You don't speak like chaos anymore, you radiate order, and to the unhealed that feels like judgment, but to the ready it feels like hope. People will mistake your calm for submission until they see the force behind it. That's the paradox of your evolution. The quieter you become, the more dangerous you are to systems built on noise. The world is trained to equate silence with weakness, humility with fear, and gentleness with surrender. They see someone composed, and they think they can control them. They see someone patient, and they think they can manipulate them. But they never understand that real strength doesn't need to announce itself. It waits, it calculates, it conserves. And when it finally moves, it doesn't ask permission. It changes everything. You've probably noticed it. People testing your limits because they think your restraint means they can push further. They misunderstand your grace as a lack of boundaries. They believe your patience is an invitation to disrespect. But peace has a limit, not because it breaks, but because it discerns. You know when to stay still, and you know when to move. And when you move, you do so with all the force of someone who's already measured every consequence and still decided it's worth it. That's why calm people are often underestimated until the day they decide they're done. The world never sees it coming because they've mistaken stillness for passivity. But stillness isn't the absence of power, it's power under perfect control. It's the lion lying down not because it's tamed, but because it chooses peace over pointless war. Yet, when necessary, it remembers who it is. That's you now, restrained, deliberate, and therefore unstoppable. Logic proves it. When someone is reactive, they can be predicted. When they can be predicted, they can be manipulated. But the calm person, The one who doesn't react to every provocation cannot be read or controlled. Your calm unnerves people because they can't tell what you're thinking. You've stopped giving them emotional data to feed on. You've become a mystery in a world addicted to emotional transparency, and that mystery makes people project their fears onto you. They'll say you're cold, distant, or heartless. In truth, you've just stopped wasting energy proving your intentions. The emotional logic is even deeper. Calmness comes from alignment, your mind, body, and spirit no longer fighting each other. When that alignment stabilizes, your energy becomes coherent. Coherence is rare. Most people live fragmented, saying one thing, feeling another, doing something else entirely. But when someone walks in full internal agreement, the atmosphere shifts around them. That's what you carry now. It's not submission, it's equilibrium. You're not bowing to the world's chaos, you're mastering your own. And that mastery radiates an invisible authority that louder people can't compete with. Your calm is not compliance, it's confidence. You don't rush to defend yourself because truth doesn't need a lawyer. You don't argue because time exposes everything eventually. You don't threaten because your silence already carries consequence. The moment you learned to stay still when others tried to provoke you, you became a higher order of being, not superior in ego, but in awareness. You finally understood that energy is currency, and you refuse to overspend it on noise that leads nowhere. But here's the twist. The very people who mock your calm will eventually come seeking it, because chaos exhausts even those who worship it. They'll come when their drama burns them out, when their ego finally collapses under its own weight, and they'll remember you, the one who didn't panic, who didn't fight for attention, who didn't lose themselves trying to win meaningless wars. Your calm will become their reference point for stability. They won't say it out loud, but in their exhaustion, they'll envy the peace they once misjudged. Calm people are builders. While others are busy reacting, you're constructing. While others argue, you're aligning. While others chase, you're preparing. That's why your silence is so misunderstood. It's not emptiness, it's incubation. Every day you hold your peace, you're gathering precision. Every time you choose not to respond, you're sharpening focus. You've learned that your power multiplies in silence, because silence gives you perspective, and perspective gives you control. And the moment you regain control, you regain direction. There's a reason storms are loud, but the Earth's rotation is silent. True power doesn't need to prove it exists. You've tapped into that truth. You no longer need to prove your worth, your intelligence, or your loyalty. You simply are, and that quiet being disrupts everything fake. That's why they misread you. They can't comprehend strength that doesn't seek validation. They can't understand peace that doesn't perform. They don't realize your calm is the aftermath of inner wars they've never fought. And when the day comes that you finally decide to move, that calm turns kinetic. It's not rage, it's release. It's everything you've withheld, directed toward one clear, decisive action. That's when people finally understand your silence was never weakness, it was mercy. You gave them time to see the truth before you embodied it. You gave them room to correct themselves before your actions corrected the environment. So let them underestimate you. Let them mistake your calm for surrender, because when you finally act, the same people who mocked your stillness will wonder how they never saw it coming. That's the beauty of quiet power. It doesn't announce, it arrives. It doesn't argue, it concludes. It doesn't react, it transforms, and by the time they realize your peace was power all along, the world around you will already be moving to the rhythm of your resolve. You were never submissive. You were simply saving your energy for the moment that mattered most, and that's why when calm people move, the earth listens. To glow like peace and move like judgment is to embody truth that can no longer be ignored. It means you have become the living intersection of grace and consequence, calm enough to understand, but powerful enough to act. You're not here to impress the world, you're here to reveal it. Your glow is what the healed recognize as strength, and your movement is what the corrupt recognize as accountability. Because once peace begins to move, it doesn't move to destroy, it moves to balance. It restores order where deception thrived and truth was silenced. That's what your presence now does. It restores balance wherever you go. This is the paradox of divine strength. The more peaceful you become, the more disruptive your very existence becomes to everything built on lies. You can't help it. Peace is magnetic, but it's also corrective. It pulls things toward truth, whether they want to go or not. When you've reached that level of alignment, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions are no longer at war with each other, you start embodying truth so completely that falsehoods can't coexist in your space. They either transform or retreat. You don't have to fight them. Your being is enough. That's what it means to glow like peace. You carry light that doesn't demand attention, yet commands it naturally. It's the glow of someone who's conquered themselves. You can't fake that glow. It doesn't come from appearances, possessions, or words. It comes from integrity. It comes from every time you chose truth over comfort, character over popularity, purpose over pleasure. It's the light born from inner war, and it's the only light that cannot be dimmed by the opinions of others. But that same glow, when it moves, becomes judgment itself. Not judgment as condemnation, judgment as revelation. When truth moves, illusions break. When peace acts, pretense dies. You've probably felt it. Your decisions now unsettle people who live in dishonesty. Your silence makes them confess more than your words ever could. Your boundaries expose their lack of discipline. Your focus highlights their distractions. That's not arrogance, that's consequence. You've become a mirror so clear that lies can't survive reflection. This is the logical outcome of transformation. When you embody what others only preach, you automatically reveal their inconsistency. And that revelation feels like judgment. It's not that you're judging them, it's that truth always brings judgment to what resists it. You've become a walking standard, not because you claim perfection, but because you've aligned with principle. That alignment becomes a measuring stick for everything around you. It's not intentional, it's inevitable. You see, truth doesn't argue with falsehood. It simply stands, and falsehood trembles. That's why those who live in deception can't stand close to the truly peaceful. Peace reveals where they've compromised, calmness exposes where they're chaotic, and love, real love, unmasks the manipulation they thought would never be seen. You don't need to call them out. Your evolution calls them higher, or calls them out of your space. Either way, movement happens. That's the silent justice of authenticity. Your glow is mercy. Your movement is correction. Both are necessary. Peace without action becomes stagnation. Judgment without compassion becomes tyranny. But when they merge, when you combine serenity with decisiveness, compassion with clarity, and forgiveness with boundaries, you become something transcendent. You become the embodiment of divine equilibrium. You no longer punish, you restore. You no longer argue, you align. You no longer chase outcomes, you become the outcome that shifts everything else. This is why the world reacts so strongly to people like you. You can't be categorized. You're gentle yet unyielding, soft, spoken yet commanding, patient yet impossible to manipulate. You don't fit into anyone's box because you've outgrown human definitions of power. Your glow says, I've healed. Your movement says, now watch me correct what's broken. And together, they rewrite the atmosphere around you. You've become both the calm before the storm and the storm itself. And that's the final stage of awakening, when peace and power no longer compete within you, but cooperate. Your glow is the proof of your healing. Your movement is the expression of your truth. The two together create presence, and presence is the highest form of influence. You're not forcing change anymore. You are the change that forces everything else to adjust. To glow like peace and move like judgment is to live as the living evidence that truth cannot stay silent forever. It's to remind the world that calm is not cowardice, that grace is not weakness, and that forgiveness is not permission. It's to walk with such quiet certainty that even those who doubt you begin to question their doubt. It's to be so grounded that deception has nowhere to hide. You are the proof that peace is not the end of the war, it's the evolution beyond it. You've become the justice of alignment, the judgment of truth, the serenity of resolution. You've become what chaos never believed could exist, a being who can smile while shaking foundations. So glow, not to be seen, but to expose. Move, not to prove, but to align. Because when peace starts to move, judgment has already begun. And when truth begins to walk, no lie can keep standing. That's who you are now, the balance between mercy and motion, silence and storm. You glow like peace, yet when you move, the world feels judgment itself awaken.